Within this section, I will be analysing Mike Tyson's personality and traits, comparing them to each previously stated personality theory to see which one best matches and explains Mike's personality. Mike Tyson is notorious for his animalistic behaviour in the ring, which catapulted him to one of the greatest fighters in the world has ever seen, as one of the most powerful and anger-fueled fighters on the planet. Mike grew up in a very rough neighbourhood, leading him to be exposed to violent behaviour all throughout his childhood, as he developed into a man. Furthermore, by age 10, Mike was abandoned by his father, leaving him with no strong male role model throughout his teens and early adulthood. From this information, it can be inferred that Albert Bandura's observational learning provided Mike with an aggressive personality, as throughout his childhood, all he was exposed to was constant anger and violence, which would have reinforced itself into Mike's personality, as he had no positive role models in the form of a father figure. What has exposed to learn from what he was exposed to led him to mimic violence and aggression he witnessed growing up, providing a possible explanation for Mike's aggressive personality. However, if Mike had gained his personality through observational learning, it would not explain why, even after he rose to fame, providing him with everything he could want, his personality did not adapt to his newfound fame and environment, but continued to act in anger, leading him to ultimately go off the rails, biting someone's ear off, and ultimately being sent to prison for the alleged abuse of a woman. Moving forward, in an interview, Mike stated, he was wild by nature. By nature he's wild, which could lead us to infer that he did not learn his aggression through observational learning, but was born with it, which would support Gordon Northrop's trait theory, which stated that people are born with their pre-established personalities and traits from their parents, which would explain why Mike believes he is wild by nature, with Mike's dominant trait being anger and aggression. Furthermore, Gordon Northrop's theory would provide an explanation for why, even after his fame, Mike continued to act wildly and aggressive, as the trait theory believes that personalities are predetermined or extremely difficult to change, which would lead Mike to act relatively the same all throughout his life, providing a possible explanation for why Mike continued to act wild even after he achieved his world-renowned fame, where he no longer needed to act violently. Another possible theory for Mike's personality is Eysenck's theory of personality. Eysenck developed the idea of a spectrum dividing into 4 defining traits: neurotic, unstable traits, stable, sociable, and calm traits, with these facing section opposing the other. For example, neurotic and stable are polar opposites of one another, which this allows people to be placed around the spectrum in correlation with their personal set of traits and characteristics to best determine their personality, allowing people to be placed in overlaying categories if they apply to more than one sector, as everyone has different levels of each of the 4 sectors. Within Eysenck's theory, he stated his belief that people inherited their biological factors and intelligence from their parents, which he called first-order personality traits, as they were given to people as from their parents. However, Eysenck went on to believe that the people would develop and learn secondary traits in their environment and experiences, which would aid to mould the subject's personalities through second-order personality traits, ultimately showing that Eysenck believed people get some of their traits from their genes. However, a large portion of the subject's traits are dependent on their environment and experiences when growing up, with both first and second order coming together to form a subject's personality, which with age become fermented and extremely difficult to change. In response to Eysenck's theory, Mike Tyson would most likely be placed into the neurotic category due to his anger-filled, unstable personality, which could be inferred that Mike Tyson's anger was both inherited from his parents and his environment, which both came together to form his personal set of traits and personality, suggesting that Mike's unstable behaviour is a result of both his parents and environment, which especially within the fighting world is fueled by anger. Furthermore, Eisenach's theory goes on to provide an explanation to why Mike was unable to adapt his personality into his newfound environment of celebrity life, as Eisenach believed that people's personalities are solidified and reinforced over time, if not adapted, making them very difficult to change. Therefore, as Mike lived with the personality of rage and anger for so many years, he became fixed in his violent childhood and anger-fueled fights. It prevented him from adapting his personality when his life finally did change to where violence and anger was no longer necessary. However, due to him living with it for so long, he was unable to change, as it had been reinforced into him over so many years, leading him to continue to act neurotically, leading him to ultimately be sent to prison for the alleged abuse of a woman. Within this section, I will be analysing the personality of the tennis legend Serena Williams, who has dominated the women's tennis world for years. To determine possible explanations to how Serena got her fiery determination, which continues to push her forward in the tennis world, with her pure determination and need to win attitude. Serena grew up in an extremely rough neighbourhood of Compton, where she started to play tennis at the age of 3. Serena and her older sister Venus, who was also a world-renowned tennis player, were coached by their father. However, many believe that their father forced tennis upon the two sisters as a way of living his own failed dreams of tennis fame. The first personality theory I will be comparing Serena to is the trait theory, which believes people inherit their personalities and traits from their parents at birth, which in response to Serena could be possible as her father was very good at tennis, coaching both her sisters to tennis fame. So it's possible that Serena inherited her tennis fame from her father. However, it would be unjust not to note Serena's years of devoted training to tennis, which led her to where she is today, showing that although Serena may have inherited some tennis skill from her father, a large portion of it is undoubtedly due to her training, which could lead us to infer that Serena's personality was formed through observational learning, with her being constantly exposed to tennis training from a very young age due to her father being reinforcing it countlessly over the years, which may have led her to develop her trademark determination and fiery determination during matches, as she witnessed it so many times over the years of training, which could be evidenced by Venus Williams, who grew up in exactly the same environment as Serena and also ended up becoming a world-famous tennis player, possibly backing up the sisters, as they both were subjected to the same environment and came out as tennis legends. Another possible criticism of the observational learning is in response to the environment Serena grew up in. As Serena grew up in the city of Compton, which is an extremely toxic, violent area of LA, which would have meant Serena would most likely, if the observational learning was correct, would become out to be a violent and aggressive person, as that was what she was exposed to during her childhood. However, Serena is not a violent and aggressive person. Therefore, the fact that Serena is not an aggressive person highlights that observational learning may not have been present to form her personality. The final theory which can be related to Serena is the Interactionist theory, which refers to the 3 layers of personality. Psychological core, which is comprised of unchanging, stable foundation traits which make a person individual due to their defining traits. Typical responses, which is how a person will usually react to things. And then finally, role-related behaviour, which is how people can change their behaviour to suit a role or job given to them. The Interactionist theory believes that people develop their personalities both from inheriting traits from their family and observational learning, observational learning from their environments they are exposed to. In response to Serena, it could be inferred that Serena inherited some of her tennis skill and drive from her father, but also developed it from her years of training to form her physiological core, the foundation of her personality, such as her determination she is known for, and leading her typical response to be that to be one of drive and passion for the sport of tennis. However, the interactionist theory could also explain why during certain matches Serena may begin to act aggressively, even if it goes against her typical response and how she usually reacts, as the matches have called for her to act in a different way as she usually acts, leading her to be more aggressive to allow her to push herself, to push her tennis play further and allow her to achieve victory within the match.